Welcome back to the Final Fantasy Dimensions walkthrough. This is going to be part 33, Castle Falgabard. So here we are in the castle, and one of the cool parts about this particular piece of the game is there's very few random encounters. So we just got to explore this castle, and it goes back, and you end up back in like this cave area, I do believe. Once you get a little bit deeper into the castle, and if I remember right, there's not a whole lot of loot before you get into more of the depths of the castle. But there's some bandits back there. Oh yeah, there's ghosts. In this section, you see dead people. So there's not too much to actually say about this piece of the game, aside from this is kind of an interesting piece in the story. This is actually interesting story element. A lot of the story I found in the game, it's been a give and take. Some of the story elements are kind of cool. Like I liked the pieces about Barbara, and I actually like this section quite a bit. But a lot of it's been very kind of mediocre. But I was going to say this piece is actually very interesting. How you have all these dead people here, and we're kind of exploring the remnants of the Empire's attack. And just like that empty treasure chest there, most of the treasure has been already looted out of the castle. I'm not sure if I find anything, but I do look. It's not for a lack of looking. And that lack of treasure is because of the bandits. They came through and took everything before they took off. So I think the idea here is that there's all these ghosts that are left behind because of the betrayal and the kind of pain and the violent nature of what had happened within the castle. So here's the bandits. You do get in a fight with these guys, and then you beat the crap out of them. They end up going back to their boss, and when you find their boss, you end up getting into another fight with him there. So, pretty easy fight, just 3 bandits, and there's really nothing to these guys. There's nothing special about them, except that they're all color coordinated. I mean, they should be proud of that. They're a team. They look like Ninja Turtles. Okay, maybe not so much like Ninja Turtles, but at least they're wearing green. There's some weird looking bandits. So I whipped out Titan on that one, and that is not a euphemism for male genitalia. I whipped out Titan the summon because I thought it was going to be a big fight, and it turned out to be not a big fight. That it ended up being a very easy fight. That's one thing that I haven't liked about this game. There is definitely a bug in the text, the way it wraps, and I've seen that in other Android games. I'm not sure if it's like that in iOS. We're seeing it a little bit here too. I think it has to do with the way that the games are programmed in there. They must upload their font to the game, and then they just program in what the text would be, just with like a string value. I guess I'm kind of talking to people that know programming a little bit there, though. But they, rather than what am I trying to say? The text dialogue on the screen is not a picture of text, which would be handled perfectly, where everything be justified and there'd be no wrapping or anything. Instead, the game is being rendered with text that's in the code, and then there's borders on the left and right hand side, and there's no rules that are in the code that tell it to wrap the text if it comes to the end of a line. I'm thinking it has to do something with Android, with how it programs, because I've seen it in other games. If it was only in this game, I'd be like, wow, you guys messed up. Something interesting, though, you don't see it very often. So I think that they tried to take out what they could and then just missed some, or it could have to do with the resolution of devices, and as it scales, maybe some resolution devices, the text looks just perfect, and on some other resolutions, it's a little bit messed up because there's more room or less room for the text. More Titan? went straight to that this time. Yeah, so their captain hits a little bit harder, as you just saw, but he's still a pushover. There's not a whole lot going on here that's even really worth denoting. He does nothing super special except for hit all your guys at once. Cool skill, bro. But it shouldn't take you very long. You'll get him killed, and then you'll continue on down through the castle. And if you play it very poorly, like I did, you will get your gram kicked. That's the bad thing about the Dark Knights is you gotta watch their HP, because if you attack too much and you get their HP down, they can go down really quick. You'll find quickly that they're very fragile, especially for guys that are wearing full-on armor. I love that I didn't even bring him back. I'm just like, he's fine. Graham went down faster than Paris Hilton. And they escaped. So you get to pick out a few treasure boxes here. This is where I kind of assume this is where they're storing all the treasure boxes that you found elsewhere in the castle and found empty. So some job points. And I did mention a couple episodes back that I'll be showing off what jobs exactly I'm using and where everybody's at and where I've spent my points in an upcoming episode. The problem is that I had recorded so many of these without producing any of them that I can't go back to show them off. There's no way to go backwards. So I will, and as soon as I get to the point where I'm all caught up, which is actually only in a couple episodes from now. I'm almost caught up now with producing these videos and where I am in the game, which is good. So maybe it wasn't a cave, maybe it was the aqueducts or the sewers of the castle that you end up in. For some reason I'm still remembering a cave. It might just be that I have the horrible memories of that Cave of Dread. Man, that zone sucks. Those enemies, that bothered me so much. Having to run from everything. Especially that you could run from everything, because when you think about it, like, if the game designers wanted you to have to suffer through those fights, and have to really feel what it was like to have to use magic, they should have made it so you can't run. They should have made it so you had to fight those fights. I'm guessing that they probably didn't do that just in case you were using a bunch of jobs that had no magic, and so you had to be able to get out of it. But that was a poor mechanic, I thought. It's difficult though with turn-based RPGs, and I've seen this many times. It's really difficult to implement a game that makes you think about what you're doing and keeps it all really balanced. A lot of times on Android especially, the turn-based RPGs that I've played, they implement this auto mode, the auto attack, and then all the enemies are roughly the same, and you end up just using fight and clearing out most of the random battles with just fight, so you're not doing anything. This one at least is a little bit better because you're able to set your different attacks, so you can kind of diversify your abilities. It's almost like the Gambit system from Final Fantasy XII, where you were able to like program your guys. Only in this one, you're only able to program one attack, and then they just run that attack. It's actually exactly like Final Fantasy IV for the DS, and that game's also out on iOS. That one had a similar auto attack feature where you could do the same thing over and over again, but you only program the one thing and then that's it. I think the cool thing about that one though was you actually programmed it out of battle. Like you set it in the menu, you set your guy up to do one thing, and then when you say auto battle, he'll just do that one thing over and over and over again, which is pretty cool. It was very necessary for that game because damn, when they remade that game, they made it hard. Like I got like halfway through that game on my DS and just said screw it and didn't play it for the longest time. And I ended up, at the time, this was right at the peak of the global recession, and I used to work for one of the very, very large banks at their corporate headquarters I worked, and kind of a hint, they went under. They were one of the only banks to go under, and I happened to be working at their corporate headquarters in IT. So I got let go and immediately got an interview with Nintendo, which is really cool. I actually had several interviews with Nintendo. Their HR department really liked me. It was just hard getting a position there because it was the peak of the recession and there wasn't a lot of positions open. So in one of the interviews that I did though, it was for a position, man, well, it was like in the marketing department or something, and it was writing up overviews of games. I think it was for some online project that they were going to do where they were going to overview games and stuff. And they wanted me to write an overview for the last game that I had beaten. And I claimed that I had beaten Final Fantasy IV on my DS. No, that was the last Nintendo game, right, that I had beaten. And I hadn't. So I played the crap out of that game for a week trying to get to this position, or get at least an interview for this position and get my foot in the door here. And they ended up hiring internally and never took any interviews. But at least I beat the game. So that's my long-winded story of how I had an interview, or at least that time I only talked to the HR at Nintendo. I actually went to their headquarters once for a pre-interview where I took a test. It was doing stuff for their website, and it was going to be user experience design because I have a little bit of experience in that because Pixel Freak actually has a blog, and I've actually done all the work there. I don't really contribute to it much anymore just because it has never been that popular, and it's really hard to keep up with a blog and a YouTube channel and have another job. But anyways, so I took this test for them, and they ended up hiring somebody else. That was one of the few rejections that I got, where they actually looked at my work and somebody didn't want to hire me. But they ended up calling me later for another gig, but I had already been hired and worked at Panasonic for a while here. Yeah, so and Nintendo, sucks that it never worked out, because it would have been really cool to work for Nintendo, but just the stars never aligned that way. I don't think they ever will either. I ended up moving a little bit too far away to ever work at Nintendo. Interestingly enough, too, I almost got a job at Microsoft, but it wasn't in the Xbox division. I've got a friend that works there, but yeah, Microsoft offered me a job, and I took the job with Panasonic because it was a better gig. So we're still crawling through these sewers here, and nothing particularly interesting has happened, except for I've told the story of my employment for the last few years. I guess that gets you through 2011, when I got my current position. Alright, so here is where things begin to hit the fan. The bandits are all ass-kicked and on the ground, and there is some Empire guys here. They would also like to ass-kick on you. There's a hidden treasure box to the left. And I should have edited out more of these fights. If I remember right, this one's cool too. Yeah, it's a weapon. I think that's a weapon. I think it said Chris. Which also happens to be me. Different spelling though. There it is. No. Did I equip it? I must have done it so fast I didn't even see. Alright, so this is technically the boss fight. I was thinking there was another boss after this, but there's not. It's just this one. So this is the boss fight, even though we don't get special music for this boss fight, which is too bad. The guys in the front are a lot weaker than the guy in the back, as normal. The guys in the front, though, they're like, they only have like 1,000 HP or something like that. It's really weak. Might even be as low as like 1,500. 1,000, 1,500, something like that. So the trick here is he casts Shell at the very beginning, and if you notice that, that means that magic's not going to work quite as well as it has in the past. Definitely employ a lot more physical attacks, but when you have a caster, there's not a lot you can do. You could try casting Chocobo, but I don't think the Chocobo, I mean, you might as well just use Titan or something stronger like that, because it's still going to outdamage Chocobo, just because even though Chocobo is physical damage, Chocobo is going to be so weak it's not really going to matter. So, this guy doesn't have a ton of HP either, so it doesn't really matter that much. Later on in the fight, you need to employ some double healing. At least I did. I found it useful. It wasn't necessary exactly. The problem is that Sylph has been kind of my go-to place for the double heal, the second heal for my team, and that's kind of run its course at this point. I mean, Sylph's only doing, what's this, 400 damage, something like that? 162? It was way off. And the healing ability there is just not great. Fight overall is pretty easy though. Shouldn't take too much. You can usually tell the easy bosses from the difficult bosses by the music. That might be just kind of what Square had seen as a boss. Definitely want to go to the right here. There's a little door that you will unlock, and it'll bring you back to the Moogle where you can heal up your character and you can buy any items that you're missing. Which I go to kind of great length here and sit in the item store and buy a whole bunch of items. So once I get out of the castle here, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my commentary, and you'll have to watch the rest of the video without me, unfortunately. But anyways, after I buy stuff here, I walk out of Castle Falgabard, and end the video. You need to walk a little bit east and then north, and that'll bring you to the next area, or at least where the next video starts. For some reason I didn't record that little walk. It probably takes you about 5 seconds, and if you can't figure it out, I'm just really sorry for you in life, because it's a pretty easy walk. Anyways, I'll see everybody on the next video. Make sure to like this one, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, this has been Pixel Freak.